Okay, it says you are live, so I believe we are live. Welcome, everybody. PT Ripa, like I said, always one of the first to show up, and Morning Glory. Good to see both of you. How y'all doing? Welcome back to another episode of Bushwhacking History. We got Robbie Radbear in the house, my go dog for when I go out to, or when we go out to any places. Last one we went to was Old Fort Niagara. I hope y'all enjoyed that one. Today we have a little bit something different. We're going to line up a couple places where we're going to go, show you guys, do some teasers, get you interested in places like, for example, what you see on the screen. This is in Robbie's stomping ground, or just around there, Rochester. We're going to dig a little bit deeper in this, maybe midstream, but let's juxtapose that to what we got here with the LiDAR. And this is just a little sampler. So we're going to go over stuff like this. Robbie and I are going to be here hopefully next week, huh, Brohim?
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's the goal.
We're going to be lining that up. I got starting a new job. God bless that. And I'll be getting trained on said job out in Rochester next week. So it just so happens that Robbie has some time during that week, which is next. And I think we're going to get together and get to this place. Robbie's got some history there, but we'll get to that in a second. Also, if you've been following along with me on my Instagram, we're going to go over some of this stuff too. Some of the saved gravy that I have. If you've been following along with me in my Instagram, you'll know that I've been a friend of local author and mini celebrity, if you will, Mason Winfield, and how I came about having one of his books, Shadows of the Western Door, is a very chance instance. My wife found it at work. I've said it before, but this is his book, Shadows of the Western Door. I share it a lot. Robbie's very familiar with it. Shout out to Mason Winfield. But what I'm going to do actually is read the post that I put up, because there's a very exciting venture going on that he's putting together. And he asked if I could be a part of it. So what I'm going to do, without stuttering over my words with my tongue tie, I'm going to read my post, and then I'll elaborate a little bit on it, and then we'll get into the presentation. So I hope this will pique your interest, because this is going to be happening fast. Mason is a mover and a shaker. He's a great author, very interesting character. A lot of people in this alternative history niche community cite Barry Fell, another gentleman who does ancient America work, got out in the field, big time on possibility of Basques being here. BC, obviously prior to Columbus, of course, possibly Celt influence, possibly Phoenician influence. And this dude, Barry, got out in the field and went and seen the geoglyphs and marked them all. And a lot of them are labeled in this book. And what I want to say is Mason, old Mason here, knew Barry Fell quite well. And the synchronicity on that is unbelievable. So I knew of Barry Fell when I first read that book, when I seen it laying at my wife's house, because she had found it at work. So that being said, I'm just going to get right into the reading, bring you guys up to speed on what's going on here. A couple of days ago, I did meet with him out in East Aurora. That's his hometown, where he's from. He knows it up, down, left, and right, like the back of his hand. A very creepy but very beautiful town of East Aurora. And we got a tour from him last October, my wife and I. So here we go. This is the post that I put up. And if you can see it online, you see it on the screen, you can read along with. Give me a second here. Wet the palate. Okay, had a recent powwow out in the beautiful town of East Aurora with good old Mason Winfield the other day, and I am truly pleased, humbled, and honored to announce that he asked me to be a featured historian in an upcoming trailer documentary that he is in the process of putting together. The doc will focus on the ancient history of Western New York, aka the Western Door, and its eerie, creepy, and esoteric nature and layout. He is coalescing many different disciplines, from historians to native elders to mystics and dowsers to clairvoyants, seers, ley line experts, and telluric current aficionados, with aim to put our collective attributes together to present a very in-depth study just how special and ancient the Western Door truly is. We'll also be going to places of interest. Mason knows almost all of them in this region, and we'll have interviews on camera and on site. I'm really looking forward to this and ask my followers to stay tuned as more details will be out soon, and I will post them here and over on my YouTube channel, link in bio. But you guys know, obviously, the YouTube channel is right here. You're at it. And side note here, Mason also knew and was friends with marine biologist, historical researcher, and author Barry Fell, which I cannot even begin to describe how absolutely awesome that is. I get a sense that Mason and I and Robbie are picking up where that legend left off. Rest in peace, Barry. We got you, homie. So that's that. He's going to be putting together a documentary. And as we were talking, excuse me, rapping back and forth in a nice little coffee shop out in East Aurora, we discussed many things, of which history and alternative history too, but there's kind of a vacuum in that niche right now. Yeah, you have the Tartaria thing going on, but if you look up the History Channel, I mean, they've just been pushing the ancient aliens thing for the better part of the past 15 years now, and it's just it's pretty stale, and there's a need now for some new life, new blood, if you will, to get interjected into that vacuum. And with Mason, he has the name to do that. Currently, he's writing another book. He's an author, as I've mentioned, about architecture. How fitting is that? And I can assure you, as he told me, that the word Tartaria is not in there once. We had a little bit of a joke about that. And as I say that, the presentation here, I've titled it Books, Old Books. I'm going to underline and back up why I say that. About Tartaria, yes, it is tongue-in-cheek, but yes, people do get, they say, their panties in a bunch when you kind of interject a counter argument to what they're saying is Tartaria, free energy, and giants built everything. For example, you'll get some of these researchers to look at these buildings and cite the architecture as Tartarian architecture. This book that I've had in showcase before, I'm going to show it on screen right now, has pictures of all this type of different architectural styles, whether it's Byzantine, Gothic art, Renaissance, and it shows pictures of all of the actual architectural styles and types in its entirety in this book, from Egypt back or through Greece, through the Roman era. So all I'm saying here with that is I'm a terms guy. And when someone points to a stately building or a Romanesque building or a Gothic style building and call it Tartarian architecture, I take professional reservation with that because I want it to be called, and I will call it what it is called, whether, again, Romanesque, Gothic, and that. So not to be combative. Heck, I'm not even trying to be combative with the mainstream. I just like to have a level playing field. And we must do our due diligence when we call all these type of buildings Tartarian architecture. So that being said, let's get back to Robbie over here. And I read that. Speaking of Tartarian architecture, let's ladle a little bit of gravy on the mud flood as well, too, because they didn't mention the mud flood really at all in that Old World Order documentary. And here's another reason why I want to level on staying away from calling everything a global realm-wide mud flood. Because, for example, the San Guillermo Parish Church, pictured here with the bottom half buried under 6 meters of a lahar. Now, a lahar is a debris flow that stems from a volcanic eruption. Let's go a little bit further on here because they detail a little bit further what they did to this building. I think mud flood, as it's termed, is a more localized thing of events, whether it's from volcanoes, lahars, debris flows, rivers overflowing their banks, places being left, and people coming back to it. Because what happened here, rebuilt in 1886, that church that you just seen, the structure is now literally half of its previous glory. The church's bottom half is buried under 6 meters of lahar from an eruption that swallowed the town and most of the province. That's a huge area. It still serves the town's faithful who access the building through what used to be the second story windows converted into doorways. Okay, so
Dude,
that's why. Oh, go ahead, Robbie. I'm going off here.
no, you're good. I just like converted that over because what? There's roughly 3 meters in a foot, so that's roughly 18 feet of debris. That's insane. Sorry, go on.
Exactly. No, exactly. And if some people just okay, you'll see pictures like this. That's not a really good picture, but you can get it in your mind's eye. Some people will just show this and be like, clearly there was a global mud flood or a realm-wide mud flood, and I'm just like, I commend people's historical research, but that's why we say Ewar, myself, Wood and Nichols, some others. When we say do our due diligence, we're not saying that you guys are stupid or anything, but for example, we'll show real world examples that clearly aren't a global mud flood. Okay, so that's that. Again, I have these old books that I'm blessed to have and grateful for in my family library. And Robbie's a book enthusiast too. Not only are you hip to the Native American side of things that we've showcased before, but I'm going to read from one of these books momentarily as I was looking into Joseph Ellicott, the founder of Buffalo, the Holland Land Purchase, which is the Western Door, the purchase of the Western Door by a Dutch group of investors, also known as the Syndicate, also known as the Holland Land Company. But what have you got a couple books, Robbie? The Mississippi Mound one and a little known author that maybe not he might not be little known to some people, but I didn't know that he was into this type of research. What did you pick up lately, Robbie? And what do you think about old EG? We'll get into your side of the things, and I'll
Yeah,
say what's up to the chat. My bad.
no, you're good, dude. No worries. I've just been listening to you lay it all out and lay out the playing field, if you will. And yeah, just to, I guess, comment on what you've been talking about thus far. If you recall, when you first met me at my place, when I had a meeting of the minds, if you will, some years ago now. It's been a few years that we've known each other, and we had a meeting of the minds here during an interesting time of life for all of us, where people were very obsessed with certain experimental injections, and when we had met, I was very open and honest with you that I was not aware at all about the whole Tartarian Empire and this whole realm-wide mud flood and such. So you took me down a rabbit hole with that, um, and brought myself back out, and we've since kind of been on the same playing field with that. But anyways, yeah, so regarding our research here, with what we're doing, in my research of Western New York and this geographical kind of southern New England area, Great Lakes Basin, if you will, I've come across the research and explorations of a man named E.G. Squire, who is from Bethlehem, New York, and I actually have some info on him here. I've been meaning to put an episode together on my own channel about this because he is kind of the encompassing factor of a lot of the research I do. Um, in my own just personal intrigues. But like I said, his name was E.G. Squire, and he was from Bethlehem, New York, and he was an archaeologist, and he produced what would be considered the maybe the first and foremost book on the mound builder civilization and the Mississippian culture, the Adinas and the Hopewells, as a lot of us refer to them as, even though those names are more so attributed to the folks whose lands their sites were found upon. And E.G. Squire was a surveyor and an archaeologist and many other things in the mid 1800s. And one thing he did is he wrote a few different books. Give me 1 second because I don't. The other
What's that one that you just picked up?
that was my notebook. I was reading some just of his anecdotal things out of there from his life that I had jotted down. But one of the main focuses of my research is Antiquities of the State of New York. And he wrote this book after
Put that back up.
he wrote,
Put that back up a little bit to the screen. Okay. Antiquities of the State of New York. Ephraim George Squire. He was into the mounds also. Okay. And there we go. That's the major one. Aboriginal monuments of the state of New York, comprising the results of original surveyors and explorations. Okay, gravy.
And what I found to be really cool, this book, Aboriginal Monument, was written in 1850. Antiquities was written in 51. What's cool about Antiquities is, if you notice, Antiquities is much thicker than Aboriginal Monuments. Sorry, I'm going the wrong direction. But it's about twice the thickness. It has all of Aboriginal monuments contained within it, as well as E.G. Squire's thoughts and comparisons on the ancient sites of New York State compared to the sites of the Mississippi Valley and down into like Mexico and Central America. So he compiled the entire original book of Aboriginal monuments, as well as his thoughts and comparisons on his other explorations that he did prior to coming home to New York. Because he actually wrote Monuments of the Mississippi Valley before he wrote those two books. Then he came home to New York and he documented all of the ancient sites here in New York State. For folks like us, history enthusiasts and just people who are intrigued and perplexed by some of these mysteries, and why the fact that a lot of what we're taught in the mainstream narrative is completely contrary to what we discover and read in some of these texts.
Yeah, so E.G. Squire's another contributor, another author that we have to go off of regarding these mounds all over the country, but more so where our focus is. Keep on calling it the Western Door, but that's what it is. As a matter of fact, let me read, just to give people who are, if you're just listening, let me read off the Wikipedia of E.G. Squires, and it'll spark your intrigue, as Robbie just said, as it has mine, because a big part of what we do, another component of what we do, are the books, the book work, right? I have, for example, let me just take up what I have here and show. How do I do that? You know what? Okay, so I might do a little bit of ladling gravy on Joseph Ellicott. He's the founder of Buffalo, but these are all the academic books that I have that reference Joseph Ellicott that I'm going to use when I comprise the video. So, for example, I'm not just relegated to using the interwebs, although I'm not opposed to it. A big message that I put out is also use the books. Not only that, Robbie and I get out into the field, and we've been to numerous places. So rubbing your nose on a site, and shout out to EBT, Enslaved by Truth, who's in the chat. What's up, dude? And I'm not sure what happened, but I'm sorry to hear about your sister as well. I've seen somebody else mention that. God bless. And our thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. EBT was just out in was that Chi-Town? I know that you're near there, EBT. That was some real talking about field work. Your latest, were you with your nephew? That was awesome. And you had some really good information about the esoteric, shall I say, mystery Babylon layout and placating of some of the edifices on those beautiful architectural structures. So good on you, man. And that's what we do here. We might set a high bar as far as saying, well, being not in an antagonistic sense to the mainstream, but we're going to be like, there definitely probably was some ancient civilizations here prior to Columbus, to include the natives. And another little post I have here, just to get your mind on that, is look at the similarity between the Seneca costume of the Iroquois and I say Norse Vikings, but I believe this is actually a Scottish Highlander, but that's all from kind of the same area. And you just wonder. Also, that we have similarities between weaponry. These are the Viking axes you have here on the left. Now, is this a direct connection? No, but there's a correlation here, and you can just do a little bit further research and say, well, I got Barry Fell saying this. We got a gentleman, Mason Winfield, saying this. They're just not put out in the mainstream, so it just doesn't get in people's minds, and it's not taught on the higher levels at academia at the university level. But just off the jump, this can't really see. This says the Black Hawk iron throwing tomahawk. It is very similar to the Dane axe. Now, does that 100% prove that there was the Vikings here down through here in the Viking Age? No, but it does lend credence to it. There's another artifact here that Robbie and I are going to go see. What's it called? The Viking spearhead, Robbie. That's in the Sodus Bay spearhead. As a matter of fact, Mason and I were talking about that. But I'm not sure. Talking about books, talking about getting to these places. Yes, the components that we present and that what we bring to the table, we're not just relegated to the internet. Both of us have our own books that we sleuth and read through, find any credible, relatable, relevant evidence that we can follow up on. Now, let's track it back to do some real world stuff here. As EBT says, live truthering. What do you, so we got the books, and I'm going to read from, as I was looking into more in depth on Joseph Ellicott, the founder and the surveyor, and the one who laid out Buffalo, whose brother Andrew Ellicott also laid out Washington, D.C. Now, a common misnomer is that French gentleman, Pierre L'Enfant, is the one who designed Washington, D.C. He did in part. But it was a collaboration between him, Andrew Ellicott, who was the Surveyor General of George Washington, and I believe Thomas Jefferson and George Washington himself. So, as a matter of fact, Pierre L'Enfant started the job, but he was either let go mutually, or some people say he was fired because of difference in their vision. And guess who finished the job? Andrew Ellicott and his brother, Joseph Ellicott. So, I have obligation to do a deep dive on Joseph. And it just so happens that Andrew Ellicott also helped him with Buffalo. And I have a lot of alternative ideas as to what happened and what went on here. I think that the radial street pattern that we have here, give me a second. Joseph is attributed to having designed that. 100,000 foot view, real quickly. I think that these radial patterns were here. I've said that before. So I got more work to do. So in doing the in-depth on that, before I get off the Pinnacle Hill here, I found this book. Okay. And this is from 1850. And little did I know that DeWitt Clinton, who is one of the first politicians who wanted to get the Erie Canal off the ground, he was really big into these ancient mound sites that were scattered throughout this land and concentrated a lot of them in Western New York itself. So did Joseph Ellicott see these ancient mounds? Was there an ancient canal system that was overrun that he's seen and his brother? I believe so, but I got a lot more work to do before I even approach to make a claim on that. But that gives you a general sense of these. There's a lot of historical figures, even DeWitt Clinton. I'm not sure if anybody remembers from their history class back in the day, but before Erie Canal got off the ground, they were calling it Clinton's Ditch because they didn't think it was going to be able to happen, and they were kind of mocking him for that. So Clinton's Ditch refers to DeWitt Clinton, as he was one of the original proponents of Erie Canal. And so was Joseph Ellicott. As a matter of fact, not only was Joseph the surveyor general of New York State, he was also the canal general of New York State. Okay, so that's, I'm going off on a diatribe here. What do you think about, so this is going to be our next location, guys. And speaking of the possibility, and I'm citing and standing on the shoulders of giants here, Mason Winfield, Barry Fell. Barry has put out that he found Celtic ruins here on outcroppings and cliff faces, and he's got it very highly documented in America, BC. And, you know, so now when I look at places like this, that Robbie lined up this one on top of, heck, Robbie, we got what else? I'm just going to rattle off some of the places that I've been putting down. Leroy Fort Hill, Bear Hill, spelled Dare. Yeah, okay. Pinnacle Hill, obviously. Newstand, Mount Hope Cemetery, Oak Hill. These are all places that Robbie knows about that lining up, whether or not you've seen them in the Aboriginal thing, Robbie, or just from, you want to tell the story a little bit about what's going on here, and I'll show some back and forth of how did you come about Pinnacle Hill? And recently you got that intuition, that faithful intuition that it just feels like an ancient site. Could it be a Celtic hill fort? Could it be, I mean, it's kind of looks like a serpent mound. I'm not saying that. This is just speculation here, but how did you come about, and what's your, want to briefly explain that story that you told me?
No, you're good. And no, and like I've so to correlate it back to, if you would go back to your comparative photo of the, I believe it was the Senecas or the Mohawks to the Scottish or the Scottish Highlanders garb. Yeah. That one. Interesting tidbit I've been waiting to comment on that, which I told you before we went live, is that Medina sandstone, which is kind of that famous sandstone formation that you see a lot in our area of the Western Door or Western New York, associated with Medina, New York, not Medina in the Middle East, is a formation that I believe, don't quote me on this, I'm not a doctor, but I believe from what I've heard is only found in Scotland, New York. So that if there's any truth to that correlation between the geological formations and certain concepts of like a ancient landmass that was like a singular landmass that split off from each other, possibly this area could have split off from Scotland. So there's, there's some interesting things to unpack.
So you're saying actual Scotland, northern England?
Yeah,
that's the only other place that Medina sandstone is found other in the world?
That's what I've heard. I haven't done a whole lot of research. I haven't gone down that rabbit hole, but I can't recall where I heard that, but it sticks out specifically in my mind. Like
in your Gulliver's Travels, you came across it.
Exactly.
So that would speak to these ancient trade routes possibly being a thing, and whether or not there was Atlantis in the middle or whatever, because that was possibly said to be the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Even aside from that, Robbie, it would just speak to the possibility that lend credence at least to Celts being here. And then maybe a good thing to bring up would be
some tribes split and some landed here, some landed here. You know what I mean? Something, I don't know. Allegedly, could it be?
Well, that's why I bring up this is what you shared with me like last week. the Brendan voyage that's citing Saint Brendan of Irish descent. But let me just read this right quick, because what it does is prove that the actual technology of the time, that which Saint Brendan was on the scene, which I believe 500 AD or in the 6th century, right? They could have crossed the Atlantic. And this gentleman right here, Tim Severin, that was a great share, Robbie, and a great documentary to watch. I'm gonna read this right quick. The leather hulled boat, it crossed the northern Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's an older documentary, and the music is a little bit cringe, but they I like that kind of nostalgic stuff. It was really cool to watch. And those guys have balls of steel. You would never catch me. Dude, I have reservations about wanting to go out on. I wouldn't go out on these cruise ships. No,
Those dudes are gnarly for sure.
Fishing for birds.
Dude, gnarly.
I mean, I'm a fisherman. Okay. This dude was fishing for birds and getting them.
Yeah.
I forget it. He was the OG, like Norse dude on the trip, but man, that was cool. Okay, so just so people are brought up to what the Brendan voyage was. The actual Brendan voyage was the undertaking by Tim Severin to try to recreate what Saint Brendan did, because he's known in Irish culture. It could be mythological in that sense of Irish myth, and there is a hearkening to. He was Catholic, but there is a hearkening back to Celtic. Okay, and that would be, that's a pagan religion, but still it's in that in between, in the interim. So I'm going to read this right quick, and I'll leave all the pertinent links in the description below after this is over with. But just let me generalize, let me read this real quick. So the Brendan voyage, quote, a truly awesome sight loomed up out of the dark just downwind of us. The white and serrated edge of a massive floe, twice the size of Brendan and glinting with malice, unquote. That's probably when it hit the ice pack. Okay. It has been described as the greatest epic voyage in modern Irish history, and the Celts are ancient Irish. Tim Severin and his companions built a boat using only the techniques and materials available in the 6th century AD. That was really cool to watch, too. They were using leather sinew, leather hides from the tannery. When St. Brendan was supposed to have sailed to America, 500 AD. Think about that, y'all. And he was doing it as a missionary pilgrimage, right, to spread the word, spread the love. Yep. The vessel, this is the modern vessel, okay, that they built with the specs of 500 AD. The vessel comprised 49 ox hides stitched together in a patchwork and stretched over a wooden frame. The leather skin was only a quarter of an inch thick. You gotta be kidding me. Yet Severin and his crew sailed Brendan from Brendan Creek in Dingle to Newfoundland, surviving storms and a puncture from an ice pack. The Brendan voyage is Tim Severin's dramatic account of their journey. An epic journey it was, too. This new edition of a book, I don't have it, probably going to get it, already translated into 27 languages, introduces a new generation of readers to an enduring classic. Tim Severin didn't prove St. Brendan reached America, only that he could have. That's the point, okay? Because it could have been a myth, an Irish myth. That it was possible. Brilliantly written, the Brendan voyage conveys unforgettably the sensation of being in a small, open boat in the vastness of the North Atlantic. Just unbelievable. Visited by inquisitive whales, reaching mist-shrouded landfalls, and receiving a welcoming from a seafaring folk wherever the crew touched land. So people who are interested more in that can definitely check it out now that you have the pertinent data points. How about that? And then, so there again, what that is important for, he showed that it was possible with that type of technology. Again, you guys heard that. Wooden boat, literally leather hide for a hull. You got to be kidding me. And that's why I say they had balls of steel. It was possible. Okay. Civilization here prior to Columbus. What do you have on the Brendan voyage, Robbie? How?
Dude,
Thanks for sharing it, man. Never heard of the
dude,
dude before you shared it.
yeah, when we started going down this whole Pinnacle Hill rabbit hole in Rochester, New York, I kept that in the back of my mind because I had seen that documentary a few years back, and just a fascinating dude, you know. There's a reason they gave him the title Saint Brendan the Navigator, right? He was an epic, like, legend of a navigator of a ship, hence the
An
title.
explorer. Before he
Yeah,
went allegedly across, he was going to Britain, from Ireland, Britain, I believe, to Scotland. So he was known for being that voyager. And yeah, his claim to fame and why he was actually sainted, I forget what that's called. Like I forget the EBT probably knows it. What do you call it when you is it canonized?
yeah, probably something along.
Um so yeah, okay, that serves as a good data point to
But
reference and say when people go ahead.
no, no, you're good. I was just gonna say, but like that voyage in general, like they did that what in the mid 1970s? It was like 76 or something like that, maybe
Yeah.
78. That voyage, and like you notated, they were punctured by Labrador, was it Labrador ice sheets or Newfoundland ice sheets? I
I
can't
think it was
remember.
from
Somewhere
the Labrador ice flow. Yes.
in the coast of Canada, they encountered just like a patchwork, if you will, of small icebergs, and they navigated most of them. It's really epic, man. You like anyone out there, I highly recommend it. And like Berserker said, I'm sure he'll have the link to the St. Brendan voyage down in the description,
Oh yeah.
or like on my Robbie Rad. I actually shared it. I don't know if you've seen that in my community tab. I shared it a couple, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago when me and you were hashing it out again. I had shared it in my community side, or like a post type of deal.
Speaking of that, let's
Epic.
everybody in the chat, if you could go over to Robbie Rad, his channel, and subscribe. Trying to get my dude over 1K at least, over 500. So he does his homesteading stuff. He puts up epic shorts. And don't worry about them haters. Those were two clowns on your recent one. That ladder is dope, Robbie.
Haters gonna
Hater,
hate.
haters gonna hate. Let them hate. So yeah, that's Robbie's channel, and he does a really good job. So I appreciate y'all if you support him because obviously you can see he's about it. You can't just talk about it. You got to be about it. So
Appreciate.
yeah, Pinnacle Hill.
But
Now
yeah,
we're going there, and this is I got this cool site, y'all. I do a lot of sleuthing. I do a lot of sleuthing on the web, but I back it up with the field work and the books. So do you want to you just want to talk about your intrigue on it, or when you were there back in the day, what were you partying on it, having a couple beers or something and didn't realize, or did you get the sense back then, Robbie? Did you get that intuition back then, or it was just like rah rah having a good time as a kid? Because that's understandable too,
it's a bit of.
obviously.
So Pinnacle Hill has a association with being kind of like not only kind of a party spot, there's multiple like burn piles, bonfire pits kind of on the site, which is interesting because there's also like I think 4 or 5 radio towers, or maybe they're cell phone towers. I'm pretty sure they're radio towers though, on the site, and the site is privately owned, and I think it's by whoever owns the radio towers. But they don't really bother public traffic too much unless things get really out of control on the site. But a lot of years ago, when my cousin and my wife which is how I know my wife. We grew up together as all kind of the same friend group and stuff, growing
Love it.
up. Um, they were going off on their own dealio. My older cousin and my wife grew up as best friends, and these two ladies were kind of going on like a pilgrimage, if you will. They were leaving New York. They were trekking across the United States and leaving it all behind to to find something, right? And that classic kind of teenage dream. And
The Vision Quest walkabout,
in
rite of
doing,
passage.
they brought a bunch of their possessions and invited a few of us close friends to Pinnacle Hill, and we burned everything in a big bonfire pit and um, drank some beers.
And that was your first introduction to the Pinnacle Hill.
That's the first and only time I've ever been on Pinnacle. I've ever been.
Ooh.
Yes.
So did you just want to harken back to it because we're lining up these spots on the map and trying to go to them, these places that could be hills? Like what comes to mind is that cemetery with the two towers episode that we had. That was awesome because we went there. I'm not sure if that was the winter, but that was another favorite episode of mine, dude. We do it.
Coming out of winter, I think we were then, because
Okay.
I remember me being dressed for winter, but it not looking like winter. Footage wise.
Yeah, what was the play? What was the cemetery that we went to that I thought was similar to the cemetery here in Buffalo, but it was way bigger because it was probably on a mound again with these mounds. And I'll read Pinnacle Hill after that.
Was it Mount Albion or Mount Olivet? It was one of the two.
Mount Albion. That's it, because I remember it's in a Jay-Z song talking about Albion or something like that. That always stuck out to me. That's a really cool story though, because it has to do with wifey. You know what I mean? And come full circle, you have a beautiful family now, and we're doing what we're doing, and Pinnacle Hills is on the radar for our next place. You know, God willing, we're going to be there next week.
Yeah. So,
yo, Shem, what's up, man? Tartarian Truth in the house. Have you heard of Tartarian Truth? Shem's a legend. What's up, dude? Good show last night with Longo. Longo, confident dude, cocky dude, nothing wrong with it, but he doesn't lack in either one of those apartments. Shout out to Old World, Florida. As a matter of fact, real quick, as a side note, Shem Jacobs, Tartarian Truth is a legend. Not to interrupt you, Robbie, but the other thing I wanted to bring up was Longo was going over elephants last night, and I had shared this post a long time ago. Damn, I got 64. On my old, now defunct, I can't get into this Instagram anymore, the 11.11, and it's the old one because you can see I'm riding the bear. But this is a carving of an elephant, or they're calling it a mastodon, in 40 feet of water in Lake Michigan. And as Longo was going over his presentation last night about elephants, I'd recommend going to watch both of them. This came into my mind because I remembered it. And I shared this. Whoa. Oh, no, that's not. I shared this November 2nd, 2021. Wow, that still is pretty long ago. And it's recognized by the Michigan State University. And it's called like the Lake Michigan Stonehenge. But there is a carving of, they're calling it a mastodon. But even back in 2021, I called it megafauna mastodon. And what do I say? War elephants. Because to me, that kind of does look like an elephant. As opposed to, it looks like a genuine elephant that's got like maybe a cut on it or whatever. That's why I said war elephants. You think of J.R.R. Tolkien's Oliphants in Lord of the Rings. Shout out to that legend. But anyway, long story short, Longo's presentation that there could have been elephants here in America, I was reminded of this, and I laid it in the chat, and Shem brought it up, and they showcased this as well. But yeah, Shem, you coming in and saying what's up reminded me of that. And hey, who knows? I'm just going to recommend go watch Longo's in depth on that, because very informative, and he does a good job with his presentations. So yeah, this is in 40 feet of water. It's a carving of what they call a mastodon, but in line with what Old World Florida was showcasing wasn't an elephant. Were they here? These are things. I'm not making the claim of it. I'm not saying that I'm right, you're wrong. I'm just saying consider the possibility. Oh, back to Pinnacle Hill. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna read this, what it says about it for those that are just listening in or whatever. Pinnacle Hill is the highest point in Rochester, reaching 749 feet above the sea level. Originally referred to as Mount Monroe in an 1829 deed, but by 1838 it was known as Pinnacle Hill. It is one of a range of 4 hills, originally 5, collectively termed the Pinnacle Hills, that runs along the city's southernmost boundary. The 4 hills are Cobb's Hill, Pinnacle Hill, Highland Hill, and Mount Hope. The 5th hill, Oak Hill, was leveled for construction of the original Oak Hill Country Club. Of course, golf courses, another trope in this alternative history niche is that all golf courses are built over and on top of ancient works.
Dude, every time.
For real. We have a lot of them here in Western New York.
Fort Agua is a country club now.
Isn't that fitting? And okay, so then it later became River Campus of the University of Rochester. So modern infrastructure and facilities on top of old infrastructure. That's what we believe. Mason Winfield is of that cloth also. So the one thing that you said to me, we'll skip over this. It's not necessarily that pertinent to what we're doing, but what you said to me, Robbie, when we were going over this before, the last sentence is the most important. Is Pinnacle Hill was a significant landmark for the Senecas. Most of its pre-colonization usage is lost to history. There you go. That's what we're trying to pull up and bring out into the light for you guys. If nothing else, that's what we do.
Yeah, and I would say on that note of Oak Hill, the former Oak Hill Country Club, where the U of R campus now sits. I was there recently with my work, and I redid a outdoor fireplace flue. I had to reline it with terracotta flue on an outdoor fireplace for a fraternity type of deal. And just an interesting area along the Genesee River for sure. And the camp that is speaking of when it says the site that was leveled to make Oak Hill Country Club back in the day, and now the site of University of Rochester campus, part of the University of Rochester campus. That campus is huge.
Shem says, Tartarian Truth says, wonder what else is in the lake. Usually a, quote, Stonehenge will be surrounded by an earthwork at least. So Lake Michigan, we're going to look that up. Lake Michigan. This is why I like getting the feedback from the chat, because it gives us more fodder to feed off of. Lake Michigan, Stonehenge. And this will show a picture.
Too bad that Orthos map wouldn't show that.
Oh, I know, right? You know what's funny? I've showed you this before, but I was trying to look up, come back to that. Y'all got the gist of Pinnacle Hill so much. We'll probably move on to, I'm going to do a reading from this DeWitt Clinton. I did a little bit of a hors d'oeuvre on him earlier, but this is the LiDAR link for Western New York. And this is up where right here is the Fort Niagara, but it doesn't come into view because it's still, like you said, Robbie, there's still military bases here from here to Oswego, pretty much. And it makes sense that it will be blurred out, but that is what it is. Just thought it was interesting to share. Probably didn't have to share that, but we were there last time for our boots on the ground fieldworking venture, and we're going to be at. Go ahead, buddy.
To note on that real quick, we've used that app extensively in almost all of our research. I mean, sites like Fort Niagara where you have pre-existing and existing military installations are going to come up obscured or whatever blurred out. But like, for instance, with the Shelby Center settlement that me and you did a 2-part episode on, we were able to
Another great
confirm
one, dude.
of that site, and not only that, but that we were on the correct site because of how it's explained in Aboriginal monuments of New York State, and what we were seeing on the LiDAR footage, the Orthos map, confirmed that not only we were on the correct site, but that it was the site being explained in the book. Like, so we can use that extensively to cross correlate and confirm our research.
I'm gonna try to find it right now. Do you remember? This is it. Does this ring a bell, or does this bring back memories? The fort, I believe, is like right here. You guys can
Search
see
up
that.
Shelby Crushed Stone. You should find it.
That's it. Yeah, this is it. I found. Yeah, this is it. Shelby Crushed Stone. But it's hard. So you can't do a search on. It's hard to do a search on this thing. You got to know where it is. It's like right off of Lockport, and you got to try to find it in the actual map. Lockport. It's near. This is where live truth ring in effect. Live Surge, it's good to see you, man. Thanks for showing up. I want to try. I did find this before, but it takes a little bit of correlation. Is it near Medina? Let me do right quick. Bear with me here. Live truth ring taking place.
Almost a perfect circle. Perfect 3-acre circle, a geoglyph of the solar wheel, which is one of the most ancient and universal symbols of mankind. Just epic site. I feel like it's been glossed over in the historical narrative. So if the work that we're doing and the future work that Mason's doing, like you were alluding to earlier, is going to possibly bring more light to that site and some of the ancient histories of this area, that's hype, dude. I'm
okay.
stoked.
Here it is. Yeah, of course, we're going to use that in the documentary. Well, whatever Mason wants to do, but like he was saying, is I didn't realize. I mean, the dude's got it all mapped out. You know, when I do a video, it's hard for me to have it in my mind, even if they're smaller videos. He's got the whole intro, what we're going to do in the body. He's like, picture you and me standing on the bluff of the escarpment, looking out over the ancient old lake of Lake Ontario, just talking about the possibility of the esoteric energies that are here. And I'm just like, whoa. I'm like, I'm full game. I'm in. And I'm just humbled. And like I said in that, I'm humbled and just grateful that he even like thought of me to be. I found it, bro. So this is that Neuter fort of the neutral Indian nation.
Mm-hmm.
Neutral fort. I'm not gonna be able to find it right now, but maybe I'll leave that link of the video. We had 2 videos, Robbie.
Right.
We had the video where we were actually on the scene doing the field work, and then we came back and ladled gravy about the data of it. And it's important because during the Beaver Wars, which was wars between the natives, the Senecas here, and the European influence, Newfoundland, the Dutch, and French, even the British, they were vying for the availability to get hold of this area of the entranceway into the interior. Because again, back in the day, there weren't roads that you think of now. Oh, why couldn't they just go? No, you had to go through the lake. That's why I hit on the Vikings a little bit, because they were very good at portaging. Portage means taking your boat from one body of water to another, because it's either impassable from a cataract, i.e. the falls, or it's just blocked by a landmass. Vikings had very low draft boats, and their portage, it's another way to pronounce portage, their efforts were very easily undertaken because of their low draft boats. So it served 2 purposes. They can get into creeks and streams that weren't too deep very easily because of the low draft boats. Also, the Viking boat was able to be portaged a lot easier. So anyway, the Beaver Wars that took place during the 1600s, pretty much all of the 1600s, this area was pivotal because they wanted to get into the lucrative fur pelt trades of the interior here, and you had to negotiate Niagara Falls. So anyway, yeah, that was one of my favorite. There it goes. The neutrals got taken over and pushed out by the Senecas in that war. So the Senecas at that time were in cahoots with, I think, the French, who were dominating the area. But again, there weren't too many roads. There were ancient paths and we'll say possibly ley lines, but the highways were the seaways. And that was one of my favorite ones to do with you, Robbie, because we went there and showcased the field work, showcased the location, came back and doubled down and did the research side of it. That's like the 1-2 punch that I like doing with what we do.
Yeah, man.
So
so
to bring the stands up into it, yo, what's up, 7-Eleven? Lucas, always good to see you, man. I appreciate all the data in the gravy that you laid with me, man. Much appreciated. Shem says R.A.P. Beavers. Lysergis says, find any mapped garbage pits. We find glass bottles and coins in the slot pits in Gold Country, California. Oh, really? No, well, this is not a garbage pit, but clearly, obviously, it's a quarry, and it's butts up right next to this. You guys can actually see the round nature of that fort right there. And like Robbie said, it's kind of got that ancient solar wheel. But then again, it harkens you back to the Celts were known as building hill forts. Okay. And again, to cite Barry Fell, he believes that they were here. He's got geoglyphs. He sees Ogham inscriptions. Ogham was the language that, or at least the written language that is attributed to the Celts. So I think I'm going to read this. I'm going to probably read a couple pages of this, so bear with me. And that will bring us into more of the mound gravy. And I'm not sure if we're going to get into Joseph Ellicott. I think I did a decent outline that he was the Surveyor General of New York. His brother, Andrew Ellicott, helped out Washington in the layout. After Pierre L'Enfant got fired, Andrew Ellicott was the one that finished the job, along with his brother, along with Jefferson. So the textbooks will say that straight up Pierre L'Enfant is the one who designed France. There's more nuance there. So, yeah, I appreciate you guys being here in the chat. It means a lot to me. This was kind of, well, not necessarily last minute, because how long we've been trying to put this one together, Robbie, and do this for a minute.
Yeah, it was spontaneous, but also...
Well, this is the only night that we were able to get together, you and I. Line up, because I'm busy for the next couple.
Yeah, for sure.
Who else we got here? Soul Red Analytics, good to see you. Yeah, EBT, God bless, brother.
So I guess I should apologize to you and the chat because I kind of got a little distracted and long-winded there with one of my last rants, if you will. But
how dare you?
Sum up the Pinnacle Hills thing. Not only was I recently working on the one of the 5 hills that was destroyed, but the 4 that are remaining, one of the 4 is, like Dustin said, the tallest point in Monroe County and the city of Rochester, New York, which is Pinnacle Hill. And the shape of the hill, as well as kind of the surrounding geography, gives me a lot of inclinations of an Iron Age hill fort that you would find in Britain or Scotland or something,
Scandinavia.
like
that.
Yeah exactly.
I think that we can't prove that kind of stuff, Robbie, but I believe that when you get those intuitive gut feelings, I'm of the MO or modus operandi that there's probably more than just something to it. But I'll hesitate and not make a claim on it. Other other counterpart research of similar to what we do, they're making claims left and right. And I am not going to, I'm obviously not judging anybody, but I would caution against that, because we can't make claims unless you have very substantiated, even dare I say, peer reviewed empirical data sets and points. Okay. That a bunch of different independent people can arrive at the same conclusion. So to make a claim is very bold.
Yeah.
If you guys know me, anything about me, been following me for a while, I very rarely ever make a claim. And I'm just trying to be professional with my presentations. Because again, I'm not right, you're not wrong. I'm not making any claims unless I could really substantiate it with some field work, empirical data, and other people critically reviewing what I do. So that's that. And another thing about Pinnacle Hill, you see it, you look at it from this angle, or not from this angle, but from a 100,000-foot view, as we're kind of doing with these programs and these applications. If it was a hill fort, it's in a very good strategically it's located in a very strategic point, because as I read about the description of it, it's in southern Rochester. And look at, if you held this as a hill fort, this looks to be right to the right of it, looks to be like it could have been a crossroads, an ancient crossroads. And then you have this bay right here, Independent, or what is it? In the Irondequoit Bay, and then the river right here. Okay, so this whole middle area right here could have been an ancient kingdom, like the Wenro once held the entire Niagara River. I've been over that. We've been over that before, but it would just be like, this is a nice little area to hold, and you had all four sides pretty much protected if you could hold it. So that's pure speculation. But if you consider the possibility that that's an ancient Celtic hill fort, this is a nice little home base here.
That, and I would add to that it has all the modern characteristics of some sort of significant site that has been usurped by the progress of man, which is one of the 5 hills was leveled to make a country club. We always see courses end up just leveling these sites. And then if you zoom back in on it, the outer 2 hills, I believe it's Mount Hope and Mount Highland, have reservoirs built into them at this point, which is very interesting. And they would have obviously expanded and kind of
modernized it.
Not terraced, but they would have done site changes to the grade there to do such things. So they've tampered with, and like you said, in doing so, almost made it doesn't have that serpent-esque shape of the Serpent Mound in Ohio.
A little bit. It's not as rounded, but it could be a head here, and it's a little bit slithering, maybe, if you will.
The reservoir being in it almost looks like the egg shape in the mouth of the serpent.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it does, there are parts of it that do look terraced, like right here. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah, I can't wait to rub my nose on it. Like, that's what we do. So we're not just sitting here looking at something on the internet and being like, hey, look at that. Let's flip the next couple pictures and, look at this mud flood on the Tartarian building. I'm joking there, people, but I'm being serious in the fact that we get out in the field. We don't just talk about it. We be about it here. And that said, yeah, I love doing that stuff. I love doing it with you, man. Getting out to these places. A lot of the places that we went to, you brought them up, So tracking back rather to what I'm doing with Joseph Ellicott, I found this book on archive.org. And again, this is the pioneer history of the Holland land purchase of Western New York. What's the Holland land purchase? Well, let's go over that again briefly. Okay. The Holland Land. Look, it's already in the bank. The Holland Land Company. I remember I said syndicate earlier. I didn't say that flippantly. The Holland Land Company was an unincorporated syndicate of 13 Dutch investors from Amsterdam, and Buffalo was
New Amsterdam.
New Amsterdam before changing to Buffalo in 1804. And there's conjecture there too, because at that time, New York City was New Amsterdam. Okay, and New York City is not within the western door. As a matter of fact, it's 600 miles away on the entire other side of the state. So I always wondered what's going on there. Yeah, I get the Dutch bought that tract of land as well from the Indians for Manhattan Island, $1. So goes that story. But it's like, why would you name two different places on the map within the same state, New Amsterdam? And then you do some more researching and sleuthing, and this is a tangent, but it's related, but it's a big one, so I'm not going to get into it too much. But if you look at the harbors of Buffalo and the lower tip of Manhattan, when you have East River and the Hudson River, they look very similar, Buffalo and New York City, because you have the Buffalo River on the right side if you're looking at it from a low panoramic angle, and then Niagara River on the left. They could look very similar. And then it's like, this is New Amsterdam, and so was Buffalo, New Amsterdam before 1804. I have to do more digging there, but just weird. I wonder if there was some kind of tomfoolery going on there. They wanted to draw people more to the west, like New Amsterdam is over here, Buffalo. And then that would open up the western door, bring people more to the west. I don't know. I'm not making a claim. It's just weird to me. Okay, so they're the Holland Land Company. They're the ones who actually hired Joseph Ellicott to survey the entirety of Western New York. And Western New York is delineated from everything west of the Genesee River. Okay. And yeah, what's interesting to me too is that they're known as a syndicate, which in some definitions is an illegal operation, if you look it up in the Webster's Merriam Dictionary. So that's that. The Holland Land Company is the purchase of that tract of land, and it's interesting because not a lot of places in the actual country have deeds that go back all the way to the purchase of the land. Most of the houses in this Western New York, the deeds go all the way back to, and some might even have the signature of Joseph Ellicott on them, which I find fascinating. And then, you scroll down a little bit here. They influenced state policy in New York to allow, this will bring us right into the reading for DeWitt Clinton. They influenced state policy in New York to allow foreign ownership of land, avoid new taxes, and promote the construction of the Erie Canal and government roads on company lands. They supported Governor DeWitt Clinton's faction in the state government to achieve these goals. The company finished selling its New York lands in 1839 and its Pennsylvania lands in 1849, and the company was liquidated in 1858. So there goes the syndicate of the top hats, as it were. Anybody have any questions in the chat? We're going to get right into this reading. So that mentioned DeWitt Clinton and his ambition for the Erie Canal, that which Joseph Ellicott also shared. And isn't it funny that OG right here was also the commissioner, the canal commissioner of New York State. And unfortunately, Joseph Ellicott went crazy later on in life, so it's said, and was admitted into the Bloomingdale Insane Asylum in New York City. And unfortunately, he took his life by hanging. So you wonder, why would such an accomplished man, number one, get so depressed that he was, at the behest of his family and friends, admitted into that psych center? And why would he kill himself? He was let go by the Holland Land Company because he couldn't fulfill and sell off all the tracts of land. God forbid, you couldn't grab it all there, Joseph. So we're going to fire you, buddy. I could see that playing on a man's mind and his confidence level, but not so much as to go literally so crazy that you have to be admitted and institutionalized, and then you kill yourself. So what I'll put out there in my in depth on him. I will do a video on him. Is that did he have some secrets about, or did he know some information about this Western New York, possibly some ancient ruins, possibly the street plan? Maybe they actually were ancient canals. Maybe they were using the current of the Niagara River to feed these canals. And did he see it? Did his brother Andrew see it? Because remember, and as I'm reading through this, Andrew actually surveyed the entirety of the Niagara River prior to 1804. He did it before his brother, Joseph. So did Andrew also know it too? And did he kind of go and tell George Washington about it? And was there conjecture there? These are things that I'm bringing up as an alternative history researcher that could be plausible. Anything you got on your plate, Robbie, as I'm just going off on it? And yeah, don't apologize. I go off on rants and tangents all the time, dude. How dare you?
Nah, no, yeah, I know. I just, try to stick to the point at hand. But I would say if I have anything to add to the Ellicott thing is as you're explaining it to me like that, and how dare me for taking kind of a, I guess, political-esque mindset on it, but I'm getting Weinstein vibes from his story. If I'm being honest with you,
As far when you say Weinstein, like elaborate a little bit.
like Harvey or whatever, the one who was just in jail and supposedly hung himself and stuff. So I don't know. You get similar.
Oh, are you talking about the island guy, Epstein?
Who I meant? Yes, I'm sorry. Yep.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's kind of what I'm getting at too. Was he really crazy?
Yeah.
And did another parallel I was thinking about too was maybe like Anthony Bourdain.
Right.
That
about. Oh yes, I forgot about Anthony Bourdain, dude. Wow.
He had recently had a run-in with Hillary and her, as he put it, and her goons, and he made a pass at him. But this is where you get into the conspiracy theory side of it. And yeah, we're tinfoil hats. So we've been talking about last time we were on our meetup, Robbie, we were talking about how early we were introduced into this stuff. You had some dude giving you stickers telling you about Jordan Maxwell when you were really young. So we have that in common, very much so. We were hip to this stuff long before it was even going on YouTube, right? I read, and I've stated many times, I've read Behold a Pale Horse when I was a senior in high school, when you had the availability to download these type of at that time, conspiracy videos on Napster, black helicopters on the horizon, FEMA camps back then. Yep. That's where I first learned about Alex Jones when he was with his megaphone outside of a Bilderberg conference, just going nuts. And I picture a high school kid seeing that stuff. And I started printing out documents on Kenmore West library printers, man. The librarian caught a couple of them. She caught the second part. I printed out the whole, because the older version of Behold a Pale Horse actually had, this might be a buzzword here for the algorithm bots, but fuck it. The original, or one of the original editions of Behold a Pale Horse actually had the Protocols of the Elders of Zion in them. Right, so I heard about that in there, and I printed it out at my the library. Got one copy off, and then Mrs. Hanny, God bless her, she caught the second part of it. And can you imagine, as a librarian, seeing that stuff? And my dad eventually wound up like confiscating my papers because I was getting into the dark, mystery Babylon schools, Moloch, and can you imagine as a parent just seeing like your high school kid like reading this stuff, and good on him for doing that. And then I got away from it for a very long time, but I always still had that. And come to find out, man, you had the history too, and we could have gone off the deep end on that level. And I would caution kids that are just waking up to it now not to go to that deep end, because that, you mentioned yourself, the anarchist book cook, if I can get around the algos, but you can see how someone who's doesn't have a good foundation, family and friends, can go off into that, the angry mob crowd. You good, buddy?
Yeah, I think
Okay,
my
we got.
headphones were connected. My
Which,
headphones are chilling next to me, and I think they were connecting to you.
oh, you're that was that. Nothing was happening. So it sounded all right.
No,
Yeah.
I just
Shout out
lost.
Nat.
I lost you. I lost audio on
You,
you.
you're a little muffled right now with it, but I think it's still workable. Shem says, shout out Napster and LimeWire. Yeah, LimeWire was another one. Kazaa was another one after Napster got shut down. Morpheus was one too. Now that I think about it, Morpheus was another one, but none of them were ever as good as Napster because Napster also had a chat element to it too, and users can go into a general chat zone and converse with each other, which was super dope. None of them ever had those functions as good as Napster. So yeah, shout out to Shem shouting out Napster and LimeWire. I remember EBT saying in one of his casts that when you're talking about they or whatever, the Illuminati, but there is a thing to that. They capture our data right now on our phones, and they actually tell us that in the terms and conditions. But I remember EBT saying, "Enslaved by Truth," they got folders on us going all the way back to our Napster days, and I'm like, they probably do in some Whopper computer, just like Quantum of Conscience. But anyway, there goes me going off on my tooting my own horn. My being a conspiracy nutbag from back in the day, dude. My buddy's friends would make fun of me for it. Like the Bills would drop a pass, and Mr. Palmero would be like, "Dustin, look, the fix is in. It's the Illuminati." And my buddies even make fun of me for my buddies' friends making fun of me about it. So it's like double layered. My dad confiscating my papers, Mrs. Hanny catching me printing out the protocols in the fucking library, dude. Crazy.
Dude, that's hilarious.
And then you had similar. I'm not sure if you had the Behold the Pale Horse, but you had somebody that was on that level of trutherdom early.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was kind of something that ran in the family, if you will. My uncle was big. He had Behold the Pale Horse. I never read it as a young man, but I kind of picked it up and skimmed through it and read things like George Orwell's 1984. Did a similar project like you said, but in high school, but not on Behold the Pale Horse, but Anarchist Cookbook, when I wasn't completely shunned and turned away for bringing that up as a book I wanted to do a research like topic on.
That's crazy when you said that to me. Like, that's crazy. Teacher,
Yeah, it was just a different time, dude. It really
yeah.
was.
Especially pre-Columbine too. That's another buzzword, but like,
Yeah.
a little bit more loose, if you will. But yeah, that book. My brother went to John Jay. You guys can hear me. My brother went to John Jay College, and he had graduated 5 years before me, so he was already in college when I was still in high school. And him and two of my other friends went to John Jay Criminal Justice School. I believe it's in Queens, Astoria, Queens. And when he came back on break one time, he brought that book with him. And lo and behold, I see the older brother's book that he left back, and I'm like, "What's Behold the Pale Horse?" And I was an avid reader then. I was had already read The Hobbit, had already read Lord of the Rings, so I'm like, let's pick this one up, see what's going on. But that's the thing. William Cooper could have, I'm not saying he's an industry plan or whatever, or COINTELPRO, or controlled opposition, or even allowed opposition. But there's like UFO stuff in there too, and I'm like, I think differently about that stuff now, but
yeah, I didn't mean to take it down a rabbit hole there.
this is all interrelated, dude. You're good.
Yeah, I couldn't help but make that correlation just because that's where my brain was going as you were.
Yeah. Oh, that's all. It's all on the table, dude. As long as we're not getting grabbled right now by the ministry, I think that we're good. So Richard Bonner said, "Welcome, Richard. Welcome, Bushwhacker. Is Miss Michelle Gibson in the house?" Rick Bonner. If Michelle Gibson's watching, shout out to Michelle. I had quite a few chats with her back when I was still sitting at the Tartarian campfire. And again, even back then, I wasn't making any claims. So take that and take what I said about that sentiment. I was still asking questions. But in that campfire, there's the flip flop gate known as like when I removed. Not sure if anybody remembers this, but my channel used to be called Bushwhacking Tartaria with Berserker Bear. And when I started getting the sense of like, there's something else going on here. Why are they calling these buildings? Again, I'm citing my book. Why are they calling buildings that are Romanesque and Gothic all Tartarian? Okay. And then I started sussing out that it could have been like, a sacred cow at that time. But I had two or three shows and talks with Michelle Gibson, and God bless her. She's a great researcher. We disagree on some things, but if she is in the house, that'd be awesome. I'd be, humbled. Okay. Yeah. I had conversations with her. I've had quite a few conversations and videos with Philip Druzinin before some of these channels even were in existence. Not Michelle Gibson and Philip Druzinin, but some of the more recent ones. I'll shout out Old World Florida, stuff like that. Before those guys were even on the scene, I had already had conversations with these OGs. So, put that in your Gandalf pipe. Let's not get too long in the tooth here. I'm gonna read this. It's gonna be not too long of a reading, but I'm gonna get to some very specific data points here. So without any further ado, I'm reading from the History of the Holland Land Purchase. Found this on archive.org. I'll leave it in the description. And here we go. Keeping in mind DeWitt Clinton, we just cited him in the talking about Joseph Ellicott and the Erie Canal. So let's go. All right, let's see where to start. We are prone to speak of ourselves as the inhabitants of a new world, and yet we are confronted with such evidences of antiquity. We clear away the forest and speak familiarly of subduing a, quote, virgin soil, and yet the plow upturns the skulls of those whose history is lost. We say that Columbus discovered a new world. Why not that he helped to make two old ones acquainted with each other? I love that. Our advent here is but one of the changes of time. We are consulting dumb signs, inanimate and unintelligible witnesses, gleaning but unsatisfactory knowledge of races that have preceded us, who, in view of Earth's revolutions and developments that the young but rapidly progressive science of geology has made, the organic remains that are found in the alluvial deposits in our valleys, deeply embedded under successive strata of rock in our mountain ranges, the impressions in our coal formations, history's emphatic teachings fails to reflect that our race may not be exempt from the operations of what may be regarded as general laws. Who shall say that the scholar, the antiquarian of another far-off century may not be champion deciphering the inscriptions upon our monuments, or a Stevens wandering among the ruins of our cities to gather the relics to identify our existence? This is kind of like older English. It's kind of, well, not difficult to read, but it's a little cumbersome. Quote, since the first sunlight spread itself o'er earth, since chaos gave 1,000 systems birth, since first the morning stars together sung, since first this globe was on its axis hung, untiring change with ever-moving hand has waved our earth its more than magic wand. Unquote. Although not peculiar to this region, there is perhaps no portion of the United States where ancient relics are more numerous. Keep that in mind, y'all. This is talking about the Western New York. Commencing principally near the Oswego River, they extend westwardly over all the western counties of our state. Canada West, the Western Lake region, the valleys of the Ohio and the Mississippi, either as now the western portion of our state had attractions and inducements to make it a favorite residence or make it a favorite, where am I going here? To make it a favorite residence, or these people assailed from the north and east made this a refuge in a war of extermination. Fortified, the commanding eminences met the shock of a final issue, were subject to its adverse results, whatever that means. Were their habits and pursuits mixed ones, their residence well chosen? The forest invited to the chase, the lakes and rivers to local commerce, to the use of net and angling rod, the soil to agriculture. The evidences that this was one, at least, of their final battlegrounds predominant. They are fortifications, here we go, entrenchments, and warlike instruments. That here was a war of extermination, we may concede, from the masses of human skeletons we find indiscriminately thrown together, indicating a common and simultaneous sepulture from which age, infancy, sex, no condition was exempt. It's a little difficult to understand what these, the general consensus, I guess, of what's going on. But let's continue, because this gets in, and I'm not going to read too much more. In assuming that these are the remains of a people older than the Indian race, here we go. We found here the author has the authority of DeWitt Clinton, a name scarcely less identified with our literature than with our achievements in internal improvements. In a discourse delivered before New York Historical Society in 1811, War of 1812, Mr. Clinton says, quote, previous to the occupation of this country by the progenitors of the present race of Indians, it was inhabited by a race of men much more populous and much more farther advanced in civilization. Boom, unquote. Indeed, the abstract position may be regarded as conceded. Who they were, whence they came, and whither they went have been themes of speculation with learned antiquarians who have failed to arrive at any satisfactory conclusions. Well, I might state that fast forward and Barry Feld did a damn good job. Okay. Antiquarians. In a field or historical department so ably and so thoroughly explored, the author would not venture opinions or theories of his own, even were it not a subject of inquiry. In the main, distinct reflection, inquiry, and speculation for volumes rather than incidental historical chapter. This is like difficult. I'm not going to say difficult reading, but the actual cadence of it is not how we do today. Anyway, let's get through. And yet, it is a subject of too much local interest to be wholly passed over. A liberal extract from the historical discourse of Mr. Clinton presents the matter in a concise form. And while it will serve as a valuable memento of a venerated scholar, statesman, and public benefactor, the theories and conclusions are far more consistent and reasonable than any others that have fallen under the author's observation. Okay, I'm gonna read this last quote, and then we'll extrapolate a little bit. Now, this is DeWitt Clinton talking about it. That's why I found it so interesting, because he was one of the guys that wanted to do Erie Canal, and I knew of him from the Erie Canal work. Had no idea he had these thoughts on these ancient peoples and ancient mounds. And he already cited, or it's already cited in this text, that there probably were, or it looks like there were a people here prior to the Indians or along with them. Let's continue. And I appreciate your patience all as I chop this text up. My goodness. Okay, quote, I have seen several of these works in the western part of this state. There is a large one in the town of Onondaga, one in Pompeii, and another in Manlius, one in Camillus, 8 miles from Auburn, one in Scipio, 6 miles, another 1 mile, and one about half a mile from the village. Between the Seneca and Cayuga lakes, there are several, 3 within a few miles of each other. Near the village of Canandaigua, I know how to pronounce that, there are 3. In a word, They are scattered all over that country. Again, that country being the Western Door, Western New York. Quote, these forts were, generally speaking, erected on the most commanding ground. The walls or breastworks were earthen. The ditches were on the exterior of the works. On some of the parapets, oak trees were to be seen, which, from the number of concentric circles, must have been standing 150, 260, and 300 years. And there were evident indications not only that they had sprung up since the creation of those works, but they were at least a second growth. Keep that in mind. So that means that these earthen mounds were here. Maybe they, and Robbie and I were talking about this before, maybe they weren't the star forts as we know them, as they were just mounds, and I think they were fortified a little bit more when the militaristic angle came into effect a little bit more. So were the star forts built on ancient mounds? That's kind of what Robbie and I were talking about last time we had our Skype session. Anyway, so second growth trees would indicate that these mounds are very, very old. The trenches were in some cases deep and wide, and others shallow and narrow. And the breastworks varied in altitude from 3 to 8 feet. They sometimes had one and sometimes two entrances, as was to be inferred from there being no ditch at those places. When the works were protected by a deep ravine or a large stream of water, no ditch was to be seen. The areas of these forts varied from 2 to 6 acres, and form was generally an irregular ellipse. Okay, they're not saying anything about a star. And in some of them, fragments of earthenware and pulverized substances supposed to have been originally human bones were to be found. Okay, so now I'm going to stop reading there. But that gives us a good general sense of how many mounds there were in this area. And you put up on screen before, Robbie, the Aboriginal mound sites of this. And that kind of reads off as a syllabus of where we can go, not just to Pinnacle Hill, not just to what, like I said before, Bigger Point, Mount Hope Cemetery, Oak Hill. Are these all ancient mounds of that race that gentleman, that quote was talking about, other than Native Americans? And then we're correlating and coalescing data here. Keep in mind what Barry Fell put together more recently compared to that book from 1850, as you've seen. Now, I'm sorry for that reading. It's a little bit choppy. I'm reading it off the computer screen. It's a little fuzzy and in a different cadence, but I'll leave the link for you so you guys can follow up as you will. But keeping in mind these mound sites and the possibility that Buffalo, Western New York had ancient inhabitants here. And if you're going to say Celts, we're talking 500 BC. Barry Fell also cited, maybe I'll play a clip of his, possibility of Phoenicians being here. So what do you have to say about that, Robbie?
I was trying.
Other than that, we're going to get to these places. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, buddy.
No, you're good. I was trying to find some of the sites in Antiquities of the State of New York as you were reading them off in DeWitt Clinton's excerpt or speech or whatever you would call it there. The closest one I could find, I did find a circular enclosure here that's in Canandaigua.
Hold on, let me nice, Robbie. Let me hold that back up again. I'm going to put you on solo layout. Thank you, Shem. I see it's an ancient work. Again, similar to the Neuter fort that we were at, dude.
Right. And it says
Ladle the gravy.
Ancient work in Canandaigua, Ontario County, New York.
That's probably one of the ones they were referring to in that text, yo.
Yeah, I was trying to find some of the ones.
That's how we do it, man.
Not all counties of New York State are in the book, just a handful. And I believe some have been expanded since then.
Or turned into star forts, man. That's what I think. Like,
well, I mean, even just county wise, like I think there's more counties now than there was in 1850 or 1851 when this book was written, is what I was saying. So like it might, like a site in Canandaigua in this book, which is now Ontario County, might encompass else or been encompassed in. I think Ontario County's always been there, but some of the other counties, it might be a different county now. They might have created another one due to metropolitan areas or something else like
That's
that.
the thing. What things were named before? It's a good point to bring up because, for example, I live in Riverside, Buffalo. However, when considering that it was a tract of land, when the Holland Land Company purchased it, they subdivided out. The tract of land that this was before was Jones Tract. And by searching that word and key term, I was able to find more pictures of this area. As a matter of fact, I can bring that up right now.
And
Live truth.
I do have a pin on that Canandaigua site. I think at least one of the sites in Canandaigua.
I'm showing my
So do your thing.
where's Riverside? I'm showing my desktop. Oh no. Jones Track. Okay, Jones Track, Riverside Park. These pictures are awesome because I know of them. I know these areas. Now, here we go.
You still got it on screen, bro. At least that's what I'm.
Oh. Again, live truthing. Gets a little bit cumbersome, but again, I appreciate your patience, guys. I appreciate the fact that, it might be a little bit discombobulated, and I shredded that reading, but you get the sense of it. So let's just do some. Now that is the old Erie Canal, ladies and gentlemen. What's there now? That bridge is still there. Okay, it's the Riverside Pedestrian Bridge, and let's take it to Riverside Park, my stomping ground. Okay, that bridge that you've seen here right now. Check this out, y'all. This is why I love doing this, and it's very special to me because you do something like this. Now this is about 30 seconds away from my house, and you can see that's the 190 freeway. That's Niagara River. That's Canada right in the background over there. Now that's that view, y'all. Okay. But instead of the actual 190 being there, it is Lake Erie. And you have these old towpath houses that were along the river, but you can see, as a matter of fact, the original international bridge there, which I questioned the foundations. Looks like there's more going across. That's another component of what I do here in Buffalo are the foundations of these bridges. How do they do that in this water, in this current? It boggles my mind, but we'll eventually get to that too. Robbie knows where I'm at with that. So searching Jones Tract instead of pictures of Riverside, when you find the names of these places that they were once called, you can get more data and information. I guess that's the point that I'm making. This is Riverside Park. This is why I get that Tom Sawyer nature about it. This is the cemetery that is still there. I still know that view, and it's just like a time gone by. This is really what gets my my heart beating. It's crazy. And then we had that picture of let's take it all the way up to Lewiston. I showed this to you before, Robbie. This is the old Lewiston incline, and that's right at the escarpment. Actually, let's go show you where that would have been. See if they have it here. Lewiston incline. I'm glad I got that reading out because I really wanted to showcase that.
It's a good reading too.
So where that would have been was like right. Lewiston is up here. And that picture kind of, it's where I get the notion of like this area during the Beaver Wars. No.
Interesting to note on what you were talking about earlier too is Lewiston would be if you were coming up the Great Lakes to get to the interior, the Niagara frontier, if you will. Lewiston is where you're gonna portage at the Niagara, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right, Robbie. Exactly. And you had stuff like this. Look at this tech, right? It's tech, but there goes a portage lane right there, because you have to negotiate either the escarpment, the bluff of the Niagara Escarpment, which is a huge formation. I should do a video on that too. It's massive. To show you guys how big it is, let's check it out. Live truth ring in effect.
Goes Rondequoit Bay to Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken.
That's to Wisconsin. That's right. Here, okay, this is a good picture to show it. Open.
What is Michigan and Lake Huron, like up to Wisconsin? It's pretty cool, man. It's wild.
It's crazy, and you can almost get a sense like it's an old fortification wall of giants. I'm not saying that. I'm just, I was saying that tongue in cheek, flippantly, but some would say that. But it's a huge structure. It's an outcropping, and it goes from where you're at out in Rochester through our area, which is what formed the Niagara Falls was the water coming down out of Lake Erie and going over that escarpment is what created the Niagara Falls. And this thing goes all the way over to Wisconsin. It's crazy. So, all right. And then you have
and all the little forts not forts, but falls on the in-between, like Holly Falls that I showed you, the Clarendon Falls. Those are all minor falls of the Niagara Escarpment as well.
The Toronto Jew Bear, shout out to Neil. He brought up the mining portion of the falls when we did our field work there and at the tunnels underneath the falls. And then this is an old Lewiston incline. You can see how cool that looks. It's no longer there, but you have that ship down at the bottom of it. And you want to talk about portage or getting your goods up onto the escarpment and over, or go around the falls, if you will. That is a portage. And this is where I get that feeling and that notion of like during the Beaver Wars or in that time period, it seems like it would have been swashbuckling / Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn type of deal, man. It's just fascinating to me. That was good. That we think about pirate stuff and Pirates of the Caribbean being in the Caribbean, but there was similar stuff going on up here with the Great Lakes and getting into the interior, through Buffalo. What else do we have? Toledo. And I'll check out the chat in 1 second if anybody has any questions, but the Niagara Escarpment is a massive feature. Michigan.
Further.
I'm sorry, what'd you say, bud?
Just something definitely to unpack further.
Absolutely. And this is the type of stuff that we're getting at with things under the ground. This is Niagara Falls, a cross-section of it. And this isn't the tunnel that Neil and I walked through, I don't think. But you got like anomalous stuff right here that aren't delineated, like the stuff that I'm circling. Mm-hmm. These things are not delineated in the legend of that diagram. I mean, that looks like a vault. This looks like a vault. This is an older post of mine. Yeah, 0 or the circle marks at least 2 anomalies at the falls. There's probably 330. Sometimes I forget exactly what I say in these posts. But, yeah, it's all impossible architecture, guys. Don't consider, the ingenuity and drive of ancient humans, especially when they had tread wheel cranes that these things are. A-frame levers and block and tackle can get a lot done. Just saying, it doesn't have to be done by giants. You can get stuff done like these beautiful aqueducts with the technology that you're looking at right there on screen. And, we could certainly debate about that, but that's my story and I'm sticking to it. That's why I kind of moved away from doing my research looking at buildings. I'm more for the infrastructure and the foundations. For example, stuff like this that was found in, I showcased this book before of mine in another ladling session gone by, The Exploration of the Colorado River by General Powell. The dude literally had one arm, and he and a team traversed and went down, was one of the first teams to go through. And this is I think this is unabridged edition of his account. And I did do a video of this probably 2-3 years ago at this point in time. They came upon this thing. Now, what is that? You want to talk about Barry Fell wants to talk about the possibility of Phoenicians being here. Okay. Carthaginians, Phoenicians are Canaanite descendants. I think Longo would disagree with me there, but that's academic. I think Longo says Phoenicians are Irish. I don't get that connection. I understand that the Phoenician boats look like Vikings, but in academia, Carthage was founded by Phoenicians. Phoenicians came from Phoenicia, the Levant region of the Eastern Mediterranean, which is now Israel. And Phoenicians are known to have been of the Canaanite variety. So why do I say that? I don't know. That kind of looks like this is all the way over in the Grand Canyon, mind you, in Glen Canyon. But if what Barry Fell has any water to hold of his assumption, is that a statue to Moloch? I don't know. I'm not saying that, but it's just weird. Now, we also have current pictures of the base of this thing. Check it out. They're right here. So that edifice is no longer there in Glen Canyon, but this is the bottom of it. And I spy Legoliths on the bottom. I don't know. There must have been something going on here. Look at that. Imagine being General Powell and of his team and coming upon and seeing something like that. You know, what do you guys think about that? Any feedback we can get in the chat? And what is this, just a natural formation of entropy happening in a canyon? Was it carved out? Is it what some might say a solidified giant, or is it pareidolia? Well, let's get some feedback here. What do you think, Robbie? Interesting, at least.
So I think Powell's a super interesting dude in general. Like you said, one of the first dudes to really explore the Grand Canyon. And me and you actually had a conversation about him the last time we had a Skype, a one-on-one chat. And I couldn't recall his name. And we were talking about exploring the Grand Canyon and just a lot of history of the Americas and stuff like that.
Alternative history of it. Yeah, I remember that actually, now that you bring it up.
Right, and how it's been kind of usurped by certain organizations. And if I'm not mistaken, is he the one that founded the Smithsonian?
I don't think it was General Powell. We were talking about that before. I forget it. We were like that. It wasn't General Powell. No, we were talking about that with DeWitt or E.G. Squires and who he was emulated after, because I forget the guy's name. That brings up a good point. Maybe we should show that, because we were kind of getting like Indiana Jones vibes from him, but one of the dudes seemed like he didn't have good intentions. I do remember that now. It slips my mind, but in general, this is the stuff that like we have in our wingspan of books that we use and bring to bear on our research, right? And things like this are overlooked. I've never seen anybody else post or mention anything about this. And it's like, what do you guys think in the chat what this could be? 6079 says, from the founding of America to the founding of Canada is 33233 days. Is it 33,233 days? Where is Russian vids when you need them? I mean, clearly you're obviously a Mason, 6079. Oh, geez. Oh, Russian. I say that jokingly. Shout out to Russian vids. He is a vegan, but whatever. We can professionally agree to disagree on that level. Longo, Old World Florida. I mean, he just thinks everybody who eats meat is a complete retard dumbass. And it's like, take it easy, Hansel. You go ahead and not eat meat, but just because we're we eat meat doesn't mean that we're not as cool as you, dude. And I say that from a professional angle. Like I said, that his research is really good, but he's got some opinions, man. And he's a younger, he's a little hot-headed and a little. There's nothing wrong with being confident, nothing wrong with being a little cocky, and he's not lacking in any of those departments. But when you like borderline personally like call out people for eating meat, it's like, pump the brakes, Hansel. And I say that coming from a good spot. And y'all could quote me on that.
Dude, I don't know if 6079 made that up from the founding of America.
He's been around a minute. He's hilarious. Give him.
Yeah. Way hilarious.
Okay. Lycurgus also said, hey, I was having a hard time pronouncing that in that text. Antiquarian is a historian. There you go. Appreciate it. Learn something new every day. I did not know that. Hopefully you guys learn something when you're watching my thing. So, yeah. And when I'm talking about Old World Florida in that context, I'm obviously coming from a good spot. Real recognizes real. Ball busting is ball busting. Nothing's personal. And that was funny. So, yeah, Joseph Ellicott. Pinnacle Hill. We're repeating ourselves now, but I think I read that reading. Yeah, what you got, Robbie?
I was gonna say, on top of Pinnacle Hill, like you had vaguely mentioned in the beginning of this, Soda Space Spearhead is another pin we got in the middle.
Let's look that up. That's another place that we have to go. We were going to go there earlier, and I put a post of it on my IG, but they got funny hours.
They are real hours, yeah.
Soda Bay Viking Spearhead. It's dated back to, whatever about 1000 AD. Yeah, so that's the Viking Age. So there goes another anomalous artifact that proves that. I'm not going to say that. That alludes to the idea or notion that there could have been established trade routes here in the Viking Age. Again, the Viking Age is top of my head from the 800s AD to about 1100s AD. Soda Bay Viking Spearhead. Sounds like they're starting to pop off fireworks already, Riverside. That's it. Historic Sodas Point. This is the museum that we were going to go to. But again, with these museums, and I was talking about this in my chat with Mason Winfield, a lot of the times they have funny off hours because it's just like a board of directors who aren't necessarily always there on site, and a lot of volunteers because they don't get much funding. So that could be a genesis as to why they have funny hours. But that said, Sodas Bay, I went fishing in Little Sodas Bay. I pulled out a nice bowfin out of there. Sodas Bay is right here. Okay. And in around this area, Sodas Point is where this
Charles.
What was that? What was his name?
It was Charles Point, I believe.
Oh, Charles Point. Okay. That's where this anomalous artifact was found. And here it is right here. Let's see if they got, you got a better picture of it or what? Open. It's probably going to be a small one. Yeah, see, but this is it though. It's a Viking spearhead right here. And we're eventually going to get there, Robbie, but it's just another place that we got to hit. So it's like add it to the list,
And that one might, it's close in the grand scheme of things in the realm, but that's a good hour and change from me, so it's probably a good 2 and change from you. So
oh yeah, as we say, it's a hot minute of a drive.
We got to line that one up just right to make it all work,
Yeah, but you know what though? In general, like you just said, that's what we do. So we have these books to bear. Again, sorry that I chopped up that reading, but at least I got it out. And the idea of politicians from our past that had this type of mindset about ancient America, I think is very important to bring to light, because it shows that we're not just being flippant with anything and just trying to look at any kind of anomalous thing and being like making claims and saying that, no, there is some substance to it. There is a there, as it were. And Robbie and I can get there. And not only that, we're going to be showcasing, and as a matter of fact, Mason Winfield said that you're more than welcome to hop on board too, Robbie. I forgot to mention that up front, but I told you already when I first explained it to you. I was so excited. And Mason actually mentioned this Viking spearhead in our conversation. So yeah, to people who are looking and following along, stay tuned, because we're going to have a trailer, as Mason put it, of the ancient history of Western New York and its mystical properties and characteristics and eerie, creepy nature. And we're going to bring to bear a lot of different disciplines. Like I said, some seers, some mystics, some dowsers, and hopefully fill a void that's going on in the history community in general. Like I said up front, like History Channel is still touting like ancient aliens and stuff. So like there is a need for this type of research right now. And Tartaria is kind of bubbling up and out as like, I mean, again, they only use that word once in the Old World Order documentary. And I have a lot of professional reservations with that. It's obviously evidenced in my last chat with shout out to Ewar and Wood and Nichols. So there's a vacuum, and I'm not being personal here, but I just think that landed a little bit short from what it was actually pumped up to be. And that's all I'll say about that. Maybe Shem, Tartarian Truth, and I are going to do another episode where we do another review of it. I think that's in order. So keep that in mind. But I think that we had enough data and knowledge dropped on this one, Robbie, to wrap it up and get people enticed for what we got going on in the future. Pinnacle Hill, Oak Hill, we're going to get there. We're going to document it. We're going to take pictures, and then we're going to come back afterwards and showcase and do the data research presentation of all these places. So again, when I say we have work for years to come, I'm not bullshitting. So stick with us. And what do you got any final thoughts, Robbie, legend?
I would just say that, yeah, I'm really excited to delve into Pinnacle Hill, and some of the curiosities that I have based around it. I'm excited to
that documentary, man. You're going to be in. Mason was like, "Oh, you're on board." He's like I told you, he's like an eccentric, but he's like, "Man, your buddy Robbie, he's on board."
Dude, yeah, I'm hyped. I'm there, and like you said, he not only noted the spearhead, but he also noted Shelby Center Settlement, which we've already been. So it just seems as if it's all pointing.
It's lining up. That's a good point that I forgot to mention. He actually brought that up unsolicited. I didn't even say that. And I'm not familiar. I don't obligate him or like, you better watch my videos. So he probably didn't even know that we did that.
Right.
But we did that one. That was a really good one. That was when I was first starting to be able to edit a little bit. Right. And put out some shorts or a little bit more concise video. So that's a really good one. I'm proud of that one too. Mm-hmm. And it just so happens that that's going to be one of the places that he showcases in the trailer / documentary. Oh yeah. Not only that, when he says trailer, if this thing pops off, and we get good feedback for it, it could be the beginning of a series, of videos that Mason would like to do. And heck, to even be considered to be a part of it. And he wants me to be the historian contributor to it, albeit, he asked me and kind of put me off guard a little bit. And he's like, "What's your title in life, Dustin?" Because again, for people who don't know or just tuning in, or Mason Winfield, the local author, he wrote quite many books, but this is one of them, Shadows of the Western Door. I tout it very heavily. He was friends with and knew Barry Fell. Okay, that's pivotal and huge to me. And he's like, he asked me, "What's your title in life, Dustin?" I'm like, "Oh man, I was going to say commercial collector. It's what I do for work. Even though I'm getting a new job, going to get trained on it next week. I'll be a meter technician." But he was coming from the angle of like my professional like research title. And I'm like, "Well, I would say that I'm an alternative history researcher." He's like, "Oh, that's perfect. That's what we're going to use. Let's go with it." So Yeah, he's a mover and a shaker. He's very intelligent, and when he sets his mind on something, it's going to get done. So the fact that he even considered me for that is, I'm humbled and I'm grateful for it. Total respect. Yeah, that's a good point there, Tall Oaks. Maybe I'll end it on that notion because I do say it a lot. The politicians ain't coming for you. Neither is the Illuminati or the New World Order or the Jesuits. Those are all self-initiating enterprises, right? The you know what, as a matter of fact, tailing off of that, a major component of the they system, or we like to use the term they a lot in this alternative history research niche, but a major component of they is us. Okay, and let me explain that. The wants and needs and ease of convenience for services that we demand as a populace or the unwashed masses is a huge component in that system. They're selling us what we want back, okay? And if you just become a little bit more independent, you get some chickens or you grow some vegetables in the back, you learn how to fish, pull out some fish, learn how to clean it and fillet it and cook it and eat it. That makes a little bit less dependent on that system of Babylon, to put it biblically speaking. So I hate to always say they're coming for you. Tall Oaks makes a really good point. The politicians aren't coming for you. And I would expand that to say, neither is the Illuminati. They're not right outside your door. What could be right outside your door is that angry mob that wants you to grab the torches and pitchforks with them and go burn down the castle. And I would strongly caution against that, because if you can't replace the system that is now currently in place with a better one, you better pay the VIG. Because what would happen afterwards is something entirely worse, Mad Max type of stuff. So yes, our system is not perfect. Yes, right now it's filled with a lot of corrupt people on the take and in the pockets of certain foreign influences and non-governmental organizations and oligarchs. But in order to change that system as a whole, we got to start communally, locally, and know your neighbors, help your neighbors out. Become a little bit less dependent on the system, and to use a relevant term here, it radiates outwards, just like the street plan of Buffalo, radiating outward. So yeah, good comment there, Tall Oaks. I appreciate that. Good on you. Funny you say dowser. I use one every day to find water. Exactly. I was explaining this to one of my friends. As a matter of fact, let's bring it up. If anyone is not familiar with dowsing, you take two copper rods, and you've probably seen it, two real thin spindle copper rods, and you hold them out at a right angle, and they can also detect like telluric currents as well. I've read up on that. If anybody's familiar with telluric currents, they're very low voltage bands of energy that are just right up off the ground of the Terra, and they can be detected by these dowsing rods. And it's really cool that you do that, Lycurgus, because we're going to have some dowsing experts in that documentary trailer that we're going to be putting together with good old Mason. So view archive, edit profile. I want to see some saved threads. Bear with me. Live truth ring in effect, y'all. I'm trying to find my saved Instagram vids. Oh, here we go. Right in front of my face. And we're going to be wrapping up soon. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for your viewership. Thanks for following. Here we go. There you go, Lycurgus. There you go.
That's awesome.
So not just saying it, showing it, and showcasing it. These are dowsing rods, and in the book "Shadows of the Western Door" by Mason, he interviewed some seers and some clairvoyants in that one, and they believed that Joseph Ellicott actually doused Niagara Square, which is the center point of Buffalo, where where the radiating spokes radiate out from. Oh goodness! But yeah, great comment there, Lycurgus. He says, "Funny you say dowser. I use one every day to find water mains. That's my job, USA." There you go, getting up and going to work. That's what USA is about. Going to work. Cool. So there goes your dowsing gravy. And let's come in and say hi to the chat one last time, and we'll say sayonara. We'll end out again on one of my favorite clips from a YouTube channel called Dorkly. I'm a gamer, half of a gamer, but we'll end it on Berserker Mario. Fitting. But let's get back to the chat real quick. Politicians are not coming for you. Tall Oaks, you're right. Lycurgus says, was the Erie Canal Potemkin Village set up? I'm not following there, but I guess it's a joke because we got an LOL in there. 6079 says okay, we already heard that one. Okay, well we're pretty much caught up on the chats. I appreciate everybody for being here. Robbie, my man, my go dog, because whenever we get out in the field, you go with me, right?
Of course, yeah, man. Thanks for having me as always, and appreciate being along for the ride and being able to ladle the gravy with you.
We got a lot more to do, man, for sure. All the sites that we have and this new documentary / trailer that Mason Winfield's going to be putting out, man. You're going to be my road dog for that one too. Lycurgus says you got to believe, but it works. Or they say you have to believe, but it works. There's something to that, I guess, I'm a faithful man. So is Robbie. We're believers in Most High, but I guess you need to believe in the actual administration of it too. There's a metaphysical thing going on there, but I could dig it. 100. Okay, so let's not get too long in the tooth here. We are going to end the stream on Berserker Mario. This is Berserker Bear. There goes my buddy Robbie Rad. Go to his channel. Please make sure to subscribe, like his stuff. And we have a lot more work to do. Appreciate everybody's viewership. I appreciate all of your support, all of your positive comments, even the critical ones. What we're doing here is not making any claims, but we are getting out in the field, and we're bringing to bear the field work along with the interweb research, along with the books that we're both fond of, very much so. So again, thank you, Robbie. This was Bushwhacking History in Buffalo, and you'll see us both really soon doing some sleuthing out in the field. So at the end of this, Berserker Mario, which is great, from YouTube channel Dorkly. Shout out to that dude. He puts together some really cool stuff if you're a gamer and you got some nostalgia to you. Without further ado, Berserker Mario, ending it. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks again. Keep it sleuthing, and we'll see you soon.